See, in the earlier class, we have seen how a gas turbine power plant work. You have seen the overall block diagram, and also you have watched the video how a gas turbine power plant works. And also, if you remember the basic concept, basic principle of working of gas turbine power plant, what it does it do? It mainly works on the principle of conversion of chemical energy that is present in the fuel into mechanical energy. And the main components of gas turbine power plants are we have compressor, then combustion chamber and turbine. Of course, then turbine is coupled to alternator. So gas turbine converts the chemical energy present in the fuel into mechanical energy. So we are injecting a fuel into the combustion chamber. So we are also injecting high pressure air. So in the compressor, air is injected after, of course, it is filtered. If any test particles are present in the air, that is filtered, and filtered air is injected into the compressor. Compressor, it compresses or squeezes the air, and high pressure is injected into the combustion chamber. And when fuel is injected in the combustion chamber, it burns and products produced are converted into mechanical energy. So today we'll understand some more concepts of gas turbine power plant, and let us see first what are the different types of fuels we use for gas turbines. So variety of fuels are used. We have solid fuels, liquid fuels, gaseous fuels which can be used for gas turbines. Although coal and peat, see what is peat? It is a decomposition of vegetable matter. uh, uh, so it is nothing but a ground layer. It is produced when a vegetable matter is decomposed in acidic form. So this can also be used as gas turbine fuels, but these are not used because of coal handling and ash handling problems you have seen in thermal power plant. Now, see, we use coal as the resource for producing steam in thermal power plant. So the main drawback is handling coal. You require a lot of coal, and when you burn coal, uh, large amount of ash is produced. So 100 kg of coal is burnt. If 100 kg of coal is burnt, 40 kg of ash itself is produced. Handling ash is a big headache. So although we can use these also for gas turbine fire fuels, these are the drawbacks: handling coal and as well as ash handling problem. So the other fuels which can be used are the petroleum fuels such as kerosene, gas oil, diesel oil, residual oil are also used for use in gas turbines, but their use is limited because of their higher cost. You know that the cost of these liquid fuels are high, so their use is limited. Natural gas is commonly used, which is mainly methane, has a high calorific value. That means we will get a large amount of heat by using methane. It has a high calorific value, and it's generally used for auxiliary power generation in oil fields. Nowadays, the gas turbine power plants use mainly natural gas and liquid petroleum fuels. So these are the different types of fuels used for gas turbine. And also you have to understand, we have to and one more thing we have to discuss: types of gas turbine power plants. So for that, let us briefly recall what we have studied in the earlier class. So if you recall the elements of simple gas turbine power plants, mainly we have compressor, combustion chamber, and gas turbine, and that is coupled to alternator. Of course, you require a starting motor for running your compressor. You require a starting motor. So it mainly consists of a reaction type turbine, a compressor mounted on the same shaft and coupled to the turbine. All are coupled to the same shaft. The combustion chamber, an alternator coupled to the turbine itself, and auxiliaries such as starting motor, lubrication pumps. You know that we have all the mechanical parts because of this wear and tear. It has to be lubricated. We have to use lubrication. So it will be oil will be pumped using the lubrication pumps. Then we have oil system, fuel system, and duct system, that is for filtering any dust components. The schematic arrangement for a simple gas turbine power plant is as shown in the figure below. So you are looking the main components of gas turbine power plant. Okay. Now you know the working of a compressor. The compressor used in the gas turbine is usually rotary type. It will be rotating type. That, of course, to the compressor we are injecting air. The air is sucked by the compressor from atmosphere through filter, that is to filter out any dust particle present in the air. So that dust particle should not be allowed to flow to the combustion chamber. So that has to be filtered, which removes dust from air. Then rotary blades of the compressor push air between the stationary blades to raise its pressure to 4 to 5 atmosphere. See, the pressure of the air is raised to 4 to 5 atmosphere. So thus the air is available at high pressure at the output of the compressor, that high pressure air is injected into the combustion chamber. Next we have the combustion chamber. The combustion chamber consists of a vessel into which the air at high pressure from the compressor is fed. So also we are injecting fuel into the combustion chamber and is burnt in the stream of air supplied from the compressor. The product of the combustion comprising of mixture of gases at high temperature and pressure are passed through the gas turbine. So you can also look at the block diagram. So in the combustion chamber, so after the combustion takes place, the hot gases produced will be at high temperature and pressure that will be fed to the gas turbine. Okay, now, so gas turbines, third component, we have gas turbine. Turbines installed in a gas turbine station are essentially a reaction turbine. So it mainly works on the principle of Newton's third law of motion, which states that action and reaction are equal and opposition. So it mainly works based on the pressure of the fuel that is injected into the combustion chamber, it will act. So when the hot gases of combustion at high temperature and pressure are passed over mixed and movable blades, they expand, their pressure falls, and much of the heat energy associated with them is given to the turbines. This causes a rotation of the turbines. So thus heat energy is transferred into mechanical energy. So the gases leaves the turbine after doing useful work, they are discharged to the atmosphere suitably. So here you can see the gases are finally exhausted to the atmosphere. Yes, hello? Hello? Yes? Shall I go ahead? Yes? Jahnavi. Okay. So, yes. So I heard some disturbance. Okay, next component we have alternator. Of course, alternator which are coupled to the turbines are of cylindrical non-salient pole type. You may have salient or non-salient pole type. Salient pole type are usually they are high-speed turbine. They are rotating type. Here we have non-salient pole type, so that is cylindrical type. So they are driven by the turbine. They convert the mechanicals into electrical energy. See, we have represented here cylindrical or non-salient pole type. So where you don't have projected poles. Okay, so the rotor will be of usually small in diameter, so which can run at high speed. See, because high mechanical energy is possible with gas turbine. So usually this will be of non-salient pole type or cylindrical type of rotors are used. Then we have a starting motor, an electric motor used for starting the compressor. Compressor is required to be started before starting of turbine because air has to be compressed, which is mounted on the same shaft as that of the turbine. You have seen in the block diagram, all are placed on the same shaft. Once the unit start, a part of the mechanical power output of the turbine drives the compressor. See, you require this motor, starting motor, only during starting. So later, once the mechanical power is produced from that can be used for running the compressor. So only initially to start the compressor you require a starting motor. So later there is no need of this starting motor. So the motor is energized by the batteries. Okay, so the gas turbine has to drive the compressor as well as alternator. See, you have seen this all are mounted in the same shaft. So gas turbine has to run the compressor as well as the alternator. So in some cases, these two functions of gas turbines are separated and two different turbines are employed. So we have high pressure turbine and low pressure turbine. A high pressure turbine drives the compressor, whereas a low pressure turbine drives the alternator. So this arrangement has the advantage that the speed of the power turbine, the turbine driving the alternator, can be kept constant at synchronous speed, whereas the speed of the turbine driving the compressor can be varied according to the output required. So you require two different types of speeds. So whereas for running your alternator, you require always constant speed. So that's why we will have two different types of turbine. So whereas for the compressor, depending upon the output required, you can vary the speed of the turbine. Okay. So it is seen that the overall efficiency of such power plants, it is called the open cycle plants. Why we call it as open cycle plants? If you look at the diagram, see here. So here any system will have so many components. So here in our case, system is your gas turbine power plant. So we have these components: compressor, combustion chamber, gas turbine, alternator, starting motor. It is called as open cycle system. So here we don't have any feedback. If it is to be a closed cycle power plant, it should have closed feedback path. That means the output of the system is again fed back to the input. In the block diagram, you will see a feedback path that will form the closed system. So what we are seeing now is an open cycle gas turbine power plant. Later you will also study the closed cycle power plant. See, it is seen that the overall efficiency of such power plants, it is called as open cycle plants, is very low. It is seen that around 65% of the power supply developed by the turbine, because some part of the power is also used for driving the compressor. So the fact that the hot gases from the combustion chamber are cooled to a safe temperature before admitting to the turbine also reduces the efficiency. This is also one reason why the efficiency is reduced, because the hot gases that is coming from the combustion chamber are cooled to a safe temperature before admitting to the turbine. So because the gases produced will be at very high temperature. So if directly it is allowed to the turbine, it may spoil the turbine blade. So it has to be cooled to a safe temperature before admitting to the turbine. So which will in turn reduce the efficiency. It is seen that the overall efficiency of this open cycle plant, because of these reasons, it is around 20%, maybe slightly more than 20%. So this is the drawback of the open cycle gas turbine power plant. So here I have shown the block diagram again. Okay. So we have to think of improving the thermal efficiency of the gas turbine power plant, because efficiency is very less. So what are the components we can include in the system to improve the thermal efficiency of gas turbine power plant? Let us see. See, it is seen that the efficiency of simple gas turbine power plants can be improved by using regenerator, intercooler and reheater as shown in the figure below. So these components we will use to improve the thermal efficiency. Regenerator, you can see here we have a regenerator, that is after the low pressure turbine. As I told here, we have two types of turbine. One is low pressure turbine, that is for running the alternator, so which will maintain the constant speed, whereas other turbine is high pressure turbine, which is running the compressor, high pressure turbine is running the compressor. Okay, so now the gases, that is of exhaust gases that is coming from the turbines, are fed to the regenerator, and some amount of hot gas can be fed to the combustion chamber, so that some of the heat can be extracted and that can be fed to the combustion chamber. Okay, this is the role of regenerator. So we'll see in detail the role, significance of regenerator, intercooler and reheater in detail now. Now regenerator, in a simple open cycle gas turbine plant, the exhaust gases emerging out of the turbine after doing useful work are discharged into the atmosphere. You have seen that. These gases are still quite hot, their temperature being far above the ambient temperature. So the heat of these gases goes waste. Simply if you directly exhaust to the atmosphere, that heat can be wasted. So we can extract some amount of heat present in these gases and it can be utilized. So what we do is, so instead of directly allowing it to the atmosphere, this heat can be utilized to preheat the air before it is admitted to the combustion chamber. For this purpose, regenerator is employed. So now come back to the original diagram. See here. So here we have the hot gases coming out of the turbine after doing the work. Hot gases that is coming out of the turbine will be carrying large amount of heat. Simply instead of directly exhausting into the atmosphere, it can be some amount of heat can be extracted and it can be supplied to the combustion chamber. See, here you have a combustion chamber. Actually, to the combustion chamber, you are injecting air. So here what we do is using regenerator, the heat present in the exhaust gas is extracted and then it is fed to the combustion chamber. Yes. Okay. So here we have combustion chamber. So from the regenerator, the heat present in the hot gases coming out of the turbine is extracted and it is fed to the combustion chamber. So this heat can be utilized using regenerator. So for this purpose, regenerator is employed. The regenerator is a shell type structure with an elaborate arrangement of tubes. That means, like in your heat exchanger, you have tubes. Okay, so here this also will have tubes. Okay, the hot gases emerging from the turbines are passed through the tubes, and the air is made to surround these tubes. Like you have seen earlier, heat exchanger. See, in heat exchanger you will have tubes. So inside the tubes, actually, the gases will be passed through these tubes, and the air is made to surround these tubes. Then what happens? Air, definitely it will be heated, and this heated air is injected into the combustion chamber. So the air expands, then much of the heat of the gases gets heated. It is then delivered to the combustion chamber. You are following this concept? So instead of wasting the heat present in the exhaust gases, we are extracting that. Then the heated air is injected in the combustion chamber. This mechanism of regeneration brings about certain economy in the use of fuel. Also, in addition, it will improve the overall thermal efficiency of the power plant. Right? So this is one equipment or component we use for improving the thermal efficiency of gas turbine power plant. Is it clear? Okay, next we'll move on to the other component. We have reheater. So you have seen reheater also we are using to improve the thermal efficiency. Reheater. See, this is placed in between low pressure and high pressure turbine. So it is seen that hot gases of combustion at high temperature and under high pressure are delivered to the turbines. Inside the turbines, the gases expand, their pressure decreases, and useful work is done in rotating the turbines. The temperature of the gases comes down and it is usual to discharge the exhaust gases to the atmosphere. However, if after expansion and useful work in the turbines, the gases could be heated again to higher temperature and passed over the turbines, again more useful work could be done and additional power could be generated. See, here again, as you have seen, the exhaust gases coming after doing the useful work from the turbine, instead of passing directly to the atmosphere, so maximum heat that can be obtained from these gases can be collected and it can be again fed back to the turbine so that we can improve the efficiency. See, that's what you have, this reheater in between the turbines. See, you have reheater in between the turbines. Okay, so this is the role of reheater. Heat after expansion and useful work in the turbines, the gases could be heated again to higher temperature and passed over the turbines so that more useful work can be done and additional power can be generated. So this is the significance of reheater. Intercooler. Intercooling means some removal of heat from the compressed air between the stage of compression. This is required. This necessitates the use of compressor with two stages, low pressure and high pressure compressor. So for this you require low pressure compressor and high pressure compressor. The intercooler is heat exchanger, like you have seen earlier, heat exchanger, which cools partly compressed air in order to reduce the volume and increase the density. See, if you want to reduce the volume, see, how do you define density? That is mass per unit volume. When your volume is reduced, the density will increase. So due to this, what happens? There will be improvement of thermal efficiency, air rate and work ratio. By using of intercooling, the size of turbine and compressor for the same output is reduced. See, here you are increasing the density, you are reducing the volume. Otherwise, the size of the turbine and compressor would be more. So that can be done by using intercooler. So this is placed between the two stages of the compressor. So you see here we have intercooler placed between the two stages of the compressor. Okay, so this is about intercooler. Now, when we add all these components, so it will form closed cycle gas turbine power plant. See, now here in the system we have feedback path. Okay, so we have discussed till now the role of regenerator, reheater, and intercooler. So in the feedback path, see, after the low pressure turbine, you know that here we have the exhaust gases coming out. Instead of directly exhausting to the atmosphere, it is made to flow through the regenerator. Some amount of heat is extracted and it is fed to the compressor. Similarly, here it is again it can be recooled and it can be fed to the low pressure compressor. So again we have intercooler that is placed between the high pressure and low pressure compressor, and also we have reheater. See here reheater, after the exhaust gases coming out of the turbine which is running the alternator, this heat can be extracted and it can be fed back. So we have in this closed system the feedback path. So that's why it is called as a closed system. So here we will see what are the advantages of closed cycle power plant. In open cycle gas turbine power plant, the fuel is mixed with air in the combustion chamber and the combustion gases are expanded in the gas turbine, which causes erosion and corrosion of the turbine blades, and therefore it becomes essential to use fuel of superior quality in the combustion chamber. See, you have seen in the open cycle power plant. So this we have not taken care. It may result in erosion and corrosion of the turbine blades. So we have to use a superior quality of fuel. So this drawback can be overcome in case of closed cycle power plant, in which fuel is not mixed with the working medium. It may be air or any other gas such as helium, argon, or hydrogen and neon. The other drawback of the open cycle plant is that the turbine exhaust is discharged into the atmosphere, resulting in rejection of heat of exhaust gases to the atmosphere. So the temperature of these exhaust gas may be above the ambient temperature. So directly, if you exhaust into the atmosphere, it may again cause pollution. So in closed cycle plant, this drawback can be overcome by rejecting heat. Okay, see, you have seen that in closed cycle power plant, this drawback can be overcome by rejecting heat of the exhaust gas in heat exchanger or recooler. See, you have to understand the maximum heat that is present in the exhaust gas, instead of directly exhausted to the atmosphere, it can be reutilized so that we can improve the overall efficiency. So we are using heat exchanger and then recooler. So in a closed cycle plant, the medium is the heated externally and it is continuously circulated through the compressor, heat exchanger, intercooler, reheater, and gas recooler. See, you are seeing that in the block diagram, there is a feedback path. It is closed, the system is closed. Whereas in case of open cycle plants, we did not have this regenerator, intercooler, and reheater. It was open cycle system. So by using this regenerator, reheater, and intercooler, we can improve the overall efficiency that is seen in closed cycle gas turbine power plant. Okay, now advantages. Let us go through the advantages. The risk of corrosion and abrasion of the interiors of turbines is eliminated as the turbines are kept free from combustion products. And since the working medium is heated externally and the fuel is not mixed with any fuel, you can use any type of fuel. The working medium is at relatively high internal pressure, so specific volume is less because you are increasing the density, so air volume is reduced and dimension of the compressor and turbines are reduced and the maximum unit capacity can be increased. So these are the advantages. It is seen that there is an improvement in the rate of heat transmission in closed cycle gas turbine power plant. These plants can be operated with highest efficiencies in comparison to open cycle plants, at an equal initial temperature of working fluid. And these are the advantages when you compare it with open cycle gas turbine power plants. And what are the applications of gas power plants? Let us see. They are used as peak load plants. See, I have told earlier, especially gas turbine power plants, they are used where there is a sudden increase in the demand, max load demand on the power plant. Instead of you run your, if you start your conventional thermal power plant, you have to run a boiler. See, to bring a single boiler in thermal power plant to online, it will take 3 to 4 hours because you have to supply coal, and temperature and pressure has to be brought to the standard value, and steam has to be produced. It takes a lot of time, minimum 3 to 4 hours. Whereas if you use gas turbine power plants, it can be quickly installed. So that's why there is a sudden increase in the load demand. These gas turbine power plants play a very important role. Mainly they are used as peak load plants and are operated in conjunction with hydroelectric and thermal power plant. Of course, thermal power plant and hydroelectric power plants, they produce large scale of power generation. So in case if there is sudden high demand, this can be gas power plants can be used along with these conventional power plants. So such plants is used as starting plant for driving auxiliary in other power plants. Even you can use as a starting plant for driving these auxiliaries in other power plants. A large number of such plants are used as standby power plants. That means standby means reserve capacity. As a reserve, in case if there is maybe in your conventional power plants, if there is one unit is under fail, maybe due to some problem, one generator is not available for service. It is out of service. So in that case, we can have this gas turbine power plant as a standby power plant, like a reserve. So they can also be used as base load plants. See, base load plants are one where they will be continuously generating the power. So only during maintenance they will be switched off. So minimum power they have to generate. So they are called as base load plants, where fuel oil or natural gas are cheap and easily available. Water also, whenever there is water supply is scarcity, especially in for nuclear power plant and thermal power plant and hydel power plant, you require a lot of amount of water. So we can use gas turbine power plants in such case where there is the scarcity of water availability. Also where fuel oil or natural gas are cheap and they are easily available. Such plants can also be used in parallel with tidal power plant. See, tidal power plant is again, it is a renewable energy source. So by using tides, you see in oceans or sea, tides are produced. Is it not? You have seen tides. There is a rising and falling movement of water. These are nothing but tides. See, there is lot of amount of energy present in these tides. So this energy can also be used for producing electricity. So you will study in higher semester or in renewable energy source how we produce electricity using tides, energy present in the tides in oceans. Of course, we can use these gas turbine power plants in parallel with the tidal power plants. Okay, so this is all about some more concepts you have to study in gas turbine power plant. Okay, so this actually, see, even okay, draw this diagram. See, you have seen in earlier in thermal power plant. See, after the boiler, what happens? Heat energy is produced. So what we have to do? This heat has to be converted into steam. So then steam is fed to the turbine. So between the boiler and the turbine, we had heat exchanger. See, inside heat exchanger, we had tubes. So through these tubes, the heat, whatever that is produced in the boiler, was made to flow through these tubes. Then for producing steam, what we do? Around these tubes, water was made to circulate. So then what happens? Water will be converted into steam. It will extract the heat from the heat that is flowing through the tubes. So then water is converted into steam. So same way here, a regenerator is like a heat exchanger. It has tubes inside the. Now module 5, I will go to module 5. Again module 5, Gupta sir and myself, we are sharing. Okay. So here in module 5, you will be studying about economics of power generation and also about the types of tariff. See, tariff means it is like it's a term mainly refers at what rate electricity that is generated will be sold to the consumers. So there are different types of tariffs that are used in by the system. So you are going to study about that and also about the significance of power factor. So I think power factor part, whether Gupta sir has started. Hello.
Yes,
Yes. Okay. Power factor part Gupta sir will consider. So remaining part in module 5 I will be discussing. Okay. So first you have to understand various terms that are used in our power system operation. So we have connected load. So connected load here. See, you know what is a load? Anything which consumes electrical energy. Like you have in your house bulbs, tubes, fans, electric motors, socket outlets, and any equipment, mixers or whatever it may be, which consumes electrical energy is a load. So we have connected load, the sum of the continuous rating of all the equipments. Each equipment may have different ratings. See, some of all these rating of these equipments. See, bulb may have 40 watts or other bulb may have 60 watts. Even you have CFLs, their rating will be very small. So sum of all these ratings together will give the connected load. So they are connected to electrical supply system is known as connected load. Is it clear? Then firm power. What is firm power? It is defined as the theoretical value. It is imagined value of theoretically we will calculate of power which a power plant like you have hydro, even thermal or maybe any type of generation type of power plant. You may have even renewable energy. Based on renewable energy source also we generate power. So it is supposed to produce throughout a year or at all time. It is known as firm power. So this much energy has to be produced. So based on the predicted load, so we expect that some amount of power has to be generated. So this is known as firm power. Okay. So example I have shown here in the diagram. What is a connected load? Example of connected load. See, you have a supply. This is supply from the authority, electricity people authority. So here we have in your house, you imagine in your house you have these type of loads which are connected. You have tube light, you have heater, then TV of different ratings. See, tube light maybe of 40 watts, heater, you know their power consumption will be high, 1000 watts. You have TV 60 watts tube light, maybe other one more tube light you have 40 watts. Like this you have so many loads connected. Okay. Now, what is connected load? It is the total load connected in the consumer's premises. Now, for the example I have considered here, you write down the sum of all the ratings of all these equipment. So you have 40 plus 1000. For TV it is 60. Like this, you add 40, 20, 500 for ironing. See CLF. What is CLF? CFL, that is compact fluorescent lamp, it should be CFL. So you know that their rating will be small. So 20. So total value is 1745 watts. So for the example I have considered here, connected load is 1745 watts. Is it clear what is the meaning of connected load? So it is simply the sum of the continuous rating of all the equipments that are connected to the supply system. Okay. So this is known as connected load. Now, see here in this module, first of all, you have to understand various terms that are related to the power system. Okay. Now we have next term, what is cold reserve? It is defined as the reserve generating capacity which is available for service but is not in operation. See, in your power plant, it may be any type of power plant you have seen earlier, thermal power plant or hydel power plant, whatever it may be. So you will have other than the some generators or units. You have to understand unit means a generator. They are running and they are supplying electrical power depending upon the load. Apart from this, you should have some reserve capacity. That means if one unit or one generator is available, not available for service, it may be having some fault, it is suddenly there is a breakage out, it is not available for service. And in that case, you should have some reserve capacity. That is called as reserve. Okay, here it is cold reserve means it is a reserve generating capacity which is available for service, but it is not in operation. So we'll connect for operation only when some unit is in failure. It may be one unit is under maintenance. That time we may have to connect the reserve capacity. This cold reserve means it is available for service, but it is not in operation. So next we have one more term, that is hot reserve. It is defined as the reserve generating capacity which is available in operation but is not in service. It is operating but it is not in service. Maybe sometimes excess power generation is happening. Then we have spinning reserve. It is defined as the generating capacity which is connected to bus and it is ready. Spinning reserve is defined as the generating capacity which is connected to bus and is ready to take load. So spinning reserve will be connected to the bus and it can take the load. In case if there is any increase in the load, it can immediately it can take. So this is the spinning reserve. Then we have demand. See, the demand of an installation or system is the load that is drawn from the source of supply at the receiving terminals. So this, which will be averaged over a suitable and specified interval of time. So demand is expressed in kilowatts, or sometimes if it is very high, you may express in megawatts. So the demand of an installation or system. See, for example, we have in our house itself, we have some load demand. It is nothing, simply the load that is drawn from the source of supply at the receiving terminals. It will be averaged over a suitable interval of time, maybe during a day, or it may be during a month. What is the total demand of the installation? So that is nothing but, okay, if it is very high value, we may express in megawatts. So then what is maximum demand or peak demand and demand factor? See, these factors, there are various factors you have to understand. Maximum demand, it is the greatest demand of load on the power station during a given period is known as maximum demand. See, you know that on a power station, during a day, if you consider, the load is not constant. The load varies, is it not? See, maybe during morning time, we residential consumers, we will use some, we will connect some loads. Whereas most of the industrial consumers, they will switch on during daytime, noon time. So again, in the evening time, we residential consumers, we will switch some loads. So like this, the load on the power station varies. So whereas the demand by the industrial consumers will be very high when compared to residential consumers. So the load on the station varies. So during a day, if you consider during a given period, maybe it is for a month or it may be a day, during a day for 24 hours if you consider. So the greatest demand on this power station is known as maximum demand. So, or we can also define it is a maximum load which a consumer uses at any time. It can be less than or equal to the connected load. See, you know, we have understood what is connected load. So it is simply the sum of the continuous ratings of all the equipments. So total, as you have seen here, in the example I had given, the total load may be 1745 watts. But in a day, out of this total load, you might have used maybe some 1000 or 1040 watts. So that is maximum you have utilized. So that becomes the maximum demand. Okay, so that's why the maximum demand can be, it can be less than or equal to maximum, it can be equal to connected load. Is it clear? So then we define what is known as demand factor. It is defined as the ratio of maximum demand to the connected load. See, maximum demand to the connected load. So this is the demand factor. Maximum demand, as you have understood, it will be, it can be less or equal to maximum connected load. So this demand factor maximum can be equal to 1 or it can be less than 1. Okay. Then you have to understand what is load curve. What is load curve? It is the graph which represents the load on the generating station. The load can be kilowatts or megawatts. If it is large value, it can be megawatts, recorded at the interval of half an hour or half or hour against the time in chronological order. See, I have shown the graph here. See, load curve is a plot of load. See, on the y-axis we have the load, whereas on the x-axis it is time. See, here I have shown this time may be for a day. See, here I have shown, consider it is for a day from midnight 12 to next 12 o'clock for 24 hours I have shown. So it is a daily load curve. So this time can be taken even for a month, and you can plot monthly load curve. Here I have shown the variation of load versus time. The time duration I have taken for one day, that is for 24. See, it may be varying. Your load may be varying. See, midnight it is very small. Maybe around 6 o'clock it is increasing, and then it is varying. It is depending upon the load, how much load is required. So it is called as load curve. So this definition I have represented here. It is also defined as the curve which is drawn between load versus time in sequential order. See, time exactly here I have shown for 2 hours, 2, 4 in sequence. Okay, or we have to draw the load curve on daily basis data, weekly, monthly basis data. As I told, it can be a daily basis or weekly or monthly. I have shown for here, I have shown for daily basis. Okay, the curve showing the variation of load, and the other way of defining load curve is the curve showing the variation of load on the power station with respect to time is known as load curve. It's a simple way of defining load curve. Hope you have followed. Okay, now what's the significance of the load curve? See, from the load curve you can see how the load is varying on the power station during different hours of the day, from morning to till midnight. How the load is varying, you can see by observing the load curve. And also it is seen that the area under the daily load curve gives the number of units generated in the day. Unit generated per day will be equal to area in kilowatt hour under daily load curve. See, you see here this is I have shown here a daily load curve. So the area of the load curve will represent how much kilowatt hour, or you know that 1 kilowatt hour is nothing but unit. So how many number of units are generated, that is known from the daily load curve by just calculating the area of the load curve. So the highest point on the daily load curve represents maximum demand on the station on that day. Again, go back to this curve. See here, you have seen that for a particular load curve, you see here the maximum demand on the station is around 6 megawatts. Can you see here? Maybe it has occurred at 6 p.m. like that. Okay, so here from the load curve you can also come to know what's the maximum demand on the station. You can also see how the load is varying throughout the day. Okay, also you can see the maximum demand on the station. So here for this typical curve it is 6 megawatts, it is occurring at 6 p.m. Okay, so this information can be known from the load curve. Now to calculate average load, see, so this is the load curve. So average load may be somewhere here. Okay, that how do you calculate? Average load is equal to area in kilowatt hour under daily load curve. Since here it is daily, that is for 24 hours divided by total time, that is in our 24 hours. Okay, so this will give the average load. Okay, then also we have to understand what is plant capacity factor. It is the ratio of actual energy produced to the maximum possible energy that could have been produced during a given period. Okay, so a plant may have more capacity, but we generate energy based on the demand. Okay, so it is plant capacity factor is equal to actual energy that is produced as per the demand divided by maximum possible energy that could have been produced. Okay, so this is plant capacity factor. So it is an indication of the reserve capacity of the plant. So this is equal to plant capacity factor minus maximum demand. So these are the standard definition you have to understand. Then what we have is plant use factor. It is a ratio of how much energy is generated to the product of plant capacity and the number of hours for which the plant was in operation. See, look at this. It is different from the plant capacity factor. this definition is with respect to use. So here in the denominator, we have plant capacity, maybe in megawatts or kilowatts, into time. So this will be kilowatt hour. So in the numerator also we have energy, that is in kilowatt hour. Okay. So here time in hours is the time for which the plant was in operation, that has to be considered. That's why it is plant use factor. For how much time the plant was utilized, it was run. Okay. So the plant use factor indicated is the plant capacity utilized, but it does not indicate the time for which the plant remained idle. How much time the plant was remained idle, that cannot be known from the plant use factor. Also, we can calculate, you have seen that average load is equal to area under the load curve divided by 24, which is equal to energy consumed in 24 hours divided by 24. If you take consider for daily load curve, it should be considered for 24 hours. Okay, so this is about the plant use factor. Then we have load factor. Load factor is the ratio of average load to the maximum load. Easy to remember. Load factor is defined as the ratio of average load. You know how to calculate the average load from the load curve. You can calculate average load, then maximum load on the station. This will give a load factor. Also, it is the ratio of number of units actually generated in a given period to number of units which could have been generated with the same maximum demand. It is also called as load factor. So there are two ways of defining the load factor. So it is always less than unity. Why it is always less than unity? You know that the maximum load will have maximum value. Of course, average load will be definitely less than the maximum load. Again, if you consider this load curve, see, this is the maximum load is 6 megawatts. Maybe average load may be somewhere, if you calculate in a day, average load may be 4 megawatts, just an approximately, it is maybe 4 megawatts. So that's what here, it is always less than unity. Load factor is always less than unity. Then we have diversity factor. What is diversity factor? It is the ratio of sum of the maximum demands of the individual consumers and maximum demand of the system. Okay, to understand this, I have taken one diagram here. See here, diversity factor. See, to understand diversity factor, you look at this diagram. See here, you have a power plant. Okay, so from the power plant, we have say 3 feeders. Maybe depending upon the structure, you may have different types of feeders. So I have shown here feeder X, feeder Y, feeder Z. So in feeders X, you have some group of consumers. Again, in feeder Y, you have some group of consumers. Similarly, in feeder Z, you have some set of consumers. So here for this group, the maximum demand may be 1500 kilowatts between 9 to 15 hours. Maybe for Y group of consumers, maximum demand is different. 1000 kilowatts, it is between 9 to 12. So whereas here it is maximum demand maybe 1200 kilowatts, it is between 12 to 2. Okay, so maximum demand is varying in a different set of consumers. Okay, so here we define diversity factor as sum of individual maximum demands. Sum of individual maximum demands. Suppose if you consider for this system, that is 1500 plus 1000 plus 1200. Okay, so this divided by maximum demand of the system. Maximum demand of the system. So for the entire system, what is the maximum demand? Definitely this ratio, diversity factor, which is the ratio of sum of individual maximum demand to maximum demand of the system, will be always greater than unity, because the sum of the individual maximum demand will be more than the maximum demand of the system. Okay, so this is about the diversity factor. Now, what are the significance of this load factor and diversity factor? The load factor, as you have seen, it's the ratio of average load to maximum load on the power plant. Okay, see, the load factor will increase if the average load increases without the increase in the maximum load. Thus, the total number of units of energy generated at higher load factor would increase. See, here what happens? See, when the supply authority, they are charging you for the electricity what you have consumed. See, every month we will get a bill. So how much electricity we have utilized. So how many units we have consumed. So accordingly, you will be charged. You have to pay the bill. So here there will be fixed charges. Okay, so there will be fixed charges. See, whether you use some units or not, some fixed charges will be given. So that will reduce if you increase the value of load factor. So you have seen that load factor is the ratio of average load to maximum load. So if you increase the average load, see the system is generating so much amount of energy. But if you are not switching on loads, if you are not utilizing these loads, your average load will decrease. Then annual, whatever whether you use or not, fixed charge will be always penalized for you. So that can be compensated if you increase the load factor. So here the annual fixed charges per unit of energy generated would reduce with increase in load factor. So as a result, the overall cost per unit of energy generated can be reduced. So that's why always the system encourages to to increase your average load. You have to consume energy because the system is generated depending upon your maximum load on the station. So load factor should be high so that the overall cost per unit of energy generated can be reduced. So this is about the various factors related to economics of power generation. Okay, so again here greatest demand of load on the power station in a given period. So you have to understand it is a given period. It may be during a day, or it may be during a month, or it may be during a year. You can consider any given interval of time. Okay, it is for a given period. Demand factor is the ratio of maximum demand to the